All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. Please mute your microphone and you can choose to turn your camera on and off. It's up to you. Please use the chat to introduce yourself. Tell us where you're coming from and what you would like to learn today. Remember to unmute your microphone when you're called upon to ask your question. And just so that you know, we will be recording this presentation so that we can post it to our website. So this is the RA Office Hours Soaring with your student data. I am Anne-Sylvie Boykin and Sonia Stevens and I will be presenting today. Let's check in. Please share in the chat ways you have used SOAR recently or how you would like to use it. And we'll give you a couple of minutes for you to do that. Anyone wants to share how they have used SOAR before, or if they haven't at all?
So there's a couple of people. Someone uses it for...
Yeah, I can see the chat actually, but thank you.
Okay. So good, using it for SIP and for historical data for interventions. That's great.
Yeah, and so somebody said, looking how people are utilizing it, we're of course open to sharing, depending how much time we have at the end. All right, I guess I will continue. So our objectives today is what is SOAR? So it stands for Student Overview Ad Hoc Report. That's a student roster. Where to find it? We will show you where to demonstrate how to access it, and then we'll give you an opportunity to practice. So let's take a tour. You will have to be logged in into your Wake ID, and then you will have to go and click onto Oasis. And then once you're in Oasis, you will have to go and click onto DEARS. And in DEARS, you may see different things that I have. It depends on what your access is, but the things that we're going to be interested in is the student rosters under teacher report and the student rosters under school reports. Those will be the same, except for the fact that the teacher report are only going to see to the teacher what student they're teaching, and the school report is going to show all of the students in the school. So the teachers will only have access to the student rosters unless, I guess, somebody asks for them to have more access than just the teacher report. So I'm going to click on the student roster.
And Sylvie, before you go any further, can we just see in the chat if you can tell us if you have access to the rosters? You could just type yes. And if you don't have access, then your principal will need to request access for you using the help desk. Okay, so it's looking like several of you have access, so great. And if you're able to follow along with Anne-Sylvie, that would be wonderful. Okay, you can continue.
Okay, so the three that have the acronym in the name are at the bottom. And the first one is current student with previous year's data, which is especially useful at the beginning of the year if you want to go and look at what grades the students that you have currently have obtained in the previous years. Lots of the information that is in the student roster is actually historical, so there is a lot that is duplicated between that one and the one with current data, which is the next one. The student report, that's the current student with current data. And the last one is last year, so previous year's roster, previous year students with their data that they had in the previous year. So it is kind of like an end of year roster. So we're going to look into the oops, I have to select a school. If you are in a specific school, you won't have to do that. You will have only your school up there. So I'm just going to pick one at random and then click on this one. And so when you do that, you're led to this window, and at the top you will see that you can select the grades or the tracks. Now, if you do not select anything, it's just going to give you all the students in your school. But if you're only interested in one specific group, then you can limit the number of students that you're going to export. And then we have all the categories: demographics, membership, attendance, academics, testing, assessment, survey, and LEP. Now, you will have to click in the boxes to select what you want to click. If you don't click anything, it's not going to give you anything at all. And all of those are expandable. So if you look in the demographic, that's the usual things that we are finding on the demographic: name, student ID, gender, ethnicity, grade, and then also a list of the 3 schools that the students were previously, so you can see where they're coming historically. The membership and attendance is membership, absences, and you will see that the first 2 are the total previous year, so that'll give you a way to compare previous year to this year. The academics is basically everything that is related to the grade. And also for middle school and high school, you'll have some course recommendations. So it'll be grade by quarter and overall for all the core courses. And in the high school, it's the same thing. It's also all the core courses, but there's going to be more than in elementary and in middle school. And the elementary and middle school will have their grades for ELA and math by strand. The testing is all the tests that are state mandated by the state. So it is going to be all your EOGs and your EOCs and Extend 1. For high schools, you'll also have the ACT and then the NC check-ins. And for each, so it'll be historical. So a student will have all the test scores that they have had in their history. And for each of the grade and subject, you're going to have the scale score, the achievement level, the relative achievement level, the percentile. And then the assessment are the more locally mandated or chosen assessments. So for middle school, it'll be iReady, Eliminate, the performance tasks, and PSAT. The survey is the student survey results. There's 6 constructs that are provided. And then what is called LEP is actually the access testing results. So this is true for all of the grades, all of our grade level. So if I was to construct a roster, I would click on the demographics, for instance, and maybe I would be interested in testing. Then I have to go back up and click export the file, and it's going to export to an Excel file that's going to download to my computer. Now those files have all the student private information, the student ID and name. So you have to be careful what you do with them and not post them into Google, for instance. And then when I click continue, you see that it brought me back to the original screen. So if I had forgotten something, I have to start all over. And the file is downloaded on my computer. And my phone wants to respond to me talking. And I actually loaded some of the files to my Google so I could show them to you, but I removed so I'm not going to show you the one that just downloaded. I removed the student. Oh, I didn't remove the student name. I thought I had. All right, and I changed the student ID to a different ID. So when you have your roster, it'll look exactly the same way when it's downloaded to your computer than when it's showing up here. You have a tab that is the data, and then there's a tab with the field description, which is very useful so you can figure out what the columns are. And this is an elementary school, and there's all the, so this has everything, not just what I had. No, actually, that's not true. It is also just demographic and testing. And what I had said earlier, if you look at the historical tests, which are here, for instance, the math, I'm going to find the skill score, the achievement level, and the relative achievement level, and the percentile. So that's true for every test the student took. And so this is how you download your rosters. And now I will pass it back to Sonia to continue. Go back to the presentation.
So you may have noticed that when Ann Sylvie was in the SOAR and she clicked on the actual category. So for example, when she clicked on demographic, the box right before demographic, everything that was in the demographics had a check mark in it. So you don't have to download all of those pieces, all of those variables. So if for example, in demographics, if you really only wanted to know the student's first name, last name, and what grade they're in, then you can just check those three. And then if you go to the testing, instead of downloading all of the test files, if you only wanted to know or see their EOG test scores from grade 3, grade 4, grades 3 and 4 reading, then you can just look at the reading scores. And so then that way your file does not have to be very long. It can be very specific, which gets into what we would like for you to do next is to think about a question. Before you actually go into the SOAR to generate a roster, one of the things that you should begin to think about in your mind is, what is it that I want to know? Because if you go in and you check the box for each one of those categories, you will have, I don't know how many, Ann Sylvie, would you guess, columns of data for all of your students? How many would you guess if you checked everything?
About 200 maybe?
Yeah, probably 200 columns. So you want to be very specific about what it is that you're looking for before you actually go in to the file, because you have the opportunity to generate a file that's specific to your question. So in this practice exercise, we've generated 4 questions or created 4 questions. And we'd like for you to pick one question and jot down the variables that you think you might want to know about a student. So for example, like I was saying with demographics, if you want to know the student's first and last name, if you want to know the student's grade level, if you want to know if they're in virtual academy or not, all of those are options under demographics. And then depending on what else you want to know or what your question is asking, select those other things. So what we'd like for you to do is, there's 4 questions on the screen. How well are students enrolled in the virtual academy performing compared to others, is in the blue box. The darker blue box. The lighter blue box says, which math strands are the strongest or weakest for students at each grade level. The pink box, which of my students are consistently attending school this year? Is their attendance better or worse than last year? And then the final question is, how many of my current 9th graders received a grade of D or F for quarter 1 and or quarter 2? So we're going to give you a few minutes to select a question. And then we actually want you, and jot down what variables you think you might want to find out. And then we'd like for you to go into SOAR and actually try to create a roster, and then review your spreadsheet, and then craft a question, an answer to the question that you selected. So we're going to give you about 5 minutes to do this. It may not even take that long. It doesn't have to be complete, but just to give you some experience with downloading or exporting a file, we'd like for you to try that. Are there any questions I can answer for you? If so, just go ahead and unmute yourself and ask the question. Okay, hearing none, I'll pull you back together in about 4 or 5 minutes. How are we doing on time? Do you guys, if you want to put in the chat if you need a couple more minutes? Okay, great. Okay, if you could just wrap up it, and if you're not done, that's okay. We can talk about what your experience was like going through this process. Is there anyone who would like to volunteer to share the question that you tackled, and if you were able to come up with a response, or just share your experience if you had problems with downloading the file, or what happened?
Hey, Sonia, Jeff Kleiber at Durant Road Middle. Thanks for doing this, by the way. I'm learning a ton. I will share what I did. I have no idea if this is the right way to go about it, but I just
Okay.
took the first question of trying to compare virtual academy academic achievement with students who are non-virtual academy. So I just picked seventh grade. That just happens to be the grade level I oversee. And when I clicked into demographics, I did last name, first name. And then I did virtual academy as a little checkbox. And then I went down and looked the number of failures for semester one. So it told me how many Fs that particular student got during that semester. And then it brought up a spreadsheet that had all of seventh graders, and it was just really easy to see, yes, if they're in virtual academy, and there was nothing in that cell if they're non-VA. And I just did sort data to show the difference between if they had a yes in the VA and if it was blank. And then I could count up how many Fs we were looking at with VA students versus non-VA. And I know that's very elementary, but I don't know if that was the right way to go about it or not.
Yeah, I mean, that sounded like that would give you the answer to your question. And a couple of things, like you remembered that you had to turn your filters on, which is a very key thing, because it helps you out just from a basic Excel standpoint. If you turn those filters on, then that will allow you to, to sort and filter however whatever it is that you're interested in. And then also remember at the very bottom, left-hand corner, that gives you a count. So you don't have to go through and individually count the students. It does give you a count of X number out of whatever the total number is. But that's pretty much what you want. Is this is designed to give you a quick answer to a question. And your question was, or what you looked at, from what I'm understanding, is how many Fs did the students in the virtual academy receive? Your seventh grade students. And so it sounds like you were able to pull that information together.
Yeah, for sure. And I appreciate you mentioned about that lower corner. I forgot about that. So no, that was a good reminder. But yeah, this was great. I think I just need to play around with it a little bit. But thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Is there anyone else who'd like to share their experience? Did you get it to work? Anyone
Hey, Sonia,
else?
I asked the same question, and I just picked a school, Glenda Harrell, ESL, randomly. And I picked a high school, and I was looking also, I picked, of course, Virtual Academy, and then LEP status, because, of course, I'm interested in English learners or not. And I was looking at the total number of credits earned and the total number of absences. And it occurred to me that maybe high school was not the best group to pick for Virtual Academy versus not for attendance. But anyway, thank you so much. It's very useful.
Yeah, so it's really going to depend on if virtual, and I don't know the answer to this question, if for Virtual Academy at high school, I guess it depends on the high school if they are semester based or on the AB schedule, because if they're semester based, there should be credits in there. So for example, if you picked Millbrook, that's on a semester schedule, then you should be, since the semester is over, you should be able to see what students who are in Virtual Academy earned those credits. But you wouldn't be able to tell that if you picked, say, Enloe, which is on an AB schedule, because they don't have the credits yet for this current year. And that's
all
the other
the
thing.
Students in high school were remote anyway last semester, right?
Oh, yes, that's
in high
true.
school. So it would be, I think that's what you meant, Glenda, right? It would be kind of You comparing kids who were remote to kids who were remote.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, I was thinking that, but related to that, could we anticipate that the total number of credits would be accurate across schools? That's a new piece of data that I think has real possibilities for us.
Yeah, it should be accurate. I mean, because this is pulling directly out of Power School. So that's a very good question. It's linked to Power School. So if they have credits, then those credits should show up in the SOAR roster once they have been finalized. And the same thing, you know, with, well, I was going to say with attendance, but is that true with attendance, Ann Sylvie? Do you know?
Yeah. That
If
it's pulled out of Power Schools too.
Yeah.
So.
So, and we know attendance, that's been a question about how we're collecting attendance, but, you know, it is what it is. Anyone else? Any last parting examples that anyone else would like to share? Thanks for sharing, Glenda.
Or any question?
Or questions? I will tell you, when I did my file as you guys were working, I had to redo it 3 times because I forgot to check the grade level. So it makes you go back, but it's really easy to do that. And then I was interested in AIG and LEP. So I checked AIG, but didn't check LEP. So I had to go back. Once I got my file, I realized that I didn't have those things checked. So you'll have those little quirky things to happen. But again, you just start over like Ann Sylvie showed us. And, you know, you do have to check your boxes again, but that's okay. I am going to drop in the chat a link to some additional questions that we came up with. So if you guys want to, you know, if you're interested, you can download that document because there's a list of about 12 questions that you can use SOAR to answer questions. And these were just questions that our staff came up with during a brainstorming session, and thinking, you know, with ourselves, like, what would we want to know based on the data that we know are included in SOAR? And so this is what we came up with, but there may be others that you have that's specific to your school or your department or whatever it is that you're working on. So you can take this list and use it, or create your own list and try to answer those questions. Are there any questions at all about SOAR, any of the data sources that are data variables that are in the rosters that you have? So hearing no additional questions, and we're right at 4 o'clock, we will have another DRA office hour session, and it's on the screen. It's titled "What Cognitive Science Teaches Us About Instruction." So that's a very interesting topic that Spencer Ziegler is going to lead us in that discussion. So I think you will find that very useful. So feel free to log into that session on February 23rd, same time, 3:30 to 4 o'clock. And if you want to stay on the line, you can certainly do that. Otherwise, you are free to go. Thank you.